In this video, I will explain Chapter 1, The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse by William Saroyan. Before we start, I'll give you a brief introduction of the story. So this story revolves around two poor Armenian boys, Morad and Aram. They are members of the Garoglanian family, and the hallmarks of their tribe are trust and honesty. We will learn that even though they were poor, they never sacrificed their honesty. Aram is 9 years old and his cousin Morad is 13 years old. The author describes a childhood incident. The incident is about his cousin Morad and a beautiful white horse. One fine summer morning, Morad brings a white horse for riding, and the author explains how the horse riding was full of thrill. We will learn about the author's cousin Morad in detail as he goes on to tell about his nature and how everyone loved him in the village. We will also learn that Morad had a very eccentric demeanor and had a specialty of remaining calm in the most stressful situations. So here we will learn how they got the horse and the story behind it. Now let's move on to the story. The narrator remembers very clearly the day when Morad came to his house at 4 in the morning and woke him up by tapping on the window of his room. Aram jumped out of bed, and when he looked out of the window, he could not believe what he saw. His cousin Morad was sitting on a beautiful white horse. Morad asked him to be quick if he wanted to ride. The narrator had a longing to ride, but his whole Garoglanian family was poor, though well known for their trust and honesty. The narrator knew that his cousin Morad could not have bought the horse, and if he could not have bought it, he must have stolen it. The narrator refused to believe he had stolen it because no member of the Garoglanian family could be a thief. The narrator, Aram, asked Morad where he had stolen that horse. Morad did not reply, but asked him to leap out of the window if he wanted to ride. He knew that Morad was crazy regarding horses, and stealing a horse for a ride was not the same as stealing money or selling a stolen horse. The narrator leaped into his clothes and jumped down to the yard from the window and leaped up onto the horse behind his cousin Morad. From their house in Walnut Avenue, they reached Olive Avenue in less than 3 minutes. The horse began to trot as the air was fresh and lovely to breathe. Morad was considered one of the craziest members of their family. He began to sing and rather roar. They reached the open country and let the horse run as long as it felt like running. At last, Morad asked Aram to get down as he wanted to ride alone. Aram asked if he would let him ride alone, to which Morad replied that it was up to the horse. The narrator got down and his cousin Morad kicked his heels into the horse and shouted at the horse to run. The horse stood on its hind legs, snorted and ran forward at a fast speed. Morad raced the horse across a field of dry grass to an irrigation ditch. He crossed the ditch on the horse and 5 minutes later returned, and he was dripping wet. The sun was coming up. Now the narrator leaped to the back of the horse, but the horse did not move. So at the suggestion of Morad, he kicked into the muscles of the horse, and it reared, snorted, and began to run. The narrator did not know what to do, so instead of running across the field to the irrigation ditch, the horse ran down the road to the vineyard of Dikran Halabian, and leaped over 7 vines before Aram fell. Morad came running down the road, and he was more worried about the horse than Aram. Both of them searched the horse in different directions. It took Morad half an hour to find the horse and bring him back. Morad hid the horse in a deserted vineyard belonging to farmer Fedvajian. There were some oats and dry alfalfa in the barn, and it occurred to the narrator that Morad had been taking early rides for some time and had come to him that morning only. Morad told Aram that it was not easy to get the horse to behave so nicely. At first, it wanted to run wild, but since he had a way with the horse, he developed an understanding with the horse. The narrator reached home and ate a hearty breakfast. That afternoon, his uncle, Khosrow, came to their house for coffee and cigarettes. While he was sipping coffee and smoking in the parlor, another visitor arrived. The visitor was a farmer named John Byro. He was an Assyrian who, out of loneliness, had learned to speak Armenian. He was also served coffee and tobacco. Sighing sadly, he said that his white horse, which had been stolen last month, was still gone. Uncle Khosrow became irritated and snubbed him for crying over a horse. Farmer John Byro was a large man with a gentle heart. He had to walk 10 miles to reach there, and his left leg pained him. The horse had cost him $60, and his surrey was no good without a horse. As soon as the farmer went away, Aram ran over to his cousin Morad's house and told him everything. He asked Morad not to return it until he learned to ride. He suggested keeping it for a year or at least 6 months. Morad thought that he was inviting a Garuglanian to steal. He decided to return the horse to its true owner. Early every morning, for 2 weeks, Morad and Aram took the horse out of the barn of the deserted vineyard where they were hiding it and rode it. Every morning, the horse would leap over grapevines and small trees and throw Aram and run away. Still, Aram hoped to learn to ride as Morad rode. One morning, on the way to Fedvajian's deserted vineyard, they came across farmer John Byro, who was on his way to the town. Morad greeted him, and the farmer studied the horse eagerly and wished them good morning. He asked the name of their horse. Morad replied that they called it My Heart. John Byro called it a lovely name for a lovely horse. He was certain that it was the horse which had been stolen from him many weeks ago. He asked if he might look into the horse's mouth. So, on examining the teeth of the horse, the farmer was ready to swear that it was his own horse. But since the fame of their family for honesty was well known, he would not call it the stolen horse. Still, it looked just like his horse. Early the next morning, the boys took the horse to John Byro's vineyard and put it in the barn. Morad put his arms around the horse, pressed his nose into the horse's nose, patted it, and then they went away. That afternoon, John Byro came to their house in his surrey and showed the narrator's mother that the horse had been stolen and returned. He was surprised to find the horse stronger than ever and also better tempered. He thanked God as his horse was returned to him, who is now healthier, well behaved, and more decent than before. So the story ends on that note. So in this story, we learn the significance and necessity of honesty even in the face of greed and desire. So now we have come to the end of the session. That is all for today's video.